So what's going on with the Spurs defense?
You are Locked On Spurs, your daily San Antonio Spurs podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, welcome back to Locked On Spurs. We're here on the Locked On NBA Network. I'm your host, Jeff Garcia, Spurs writer for KENS 5 San Antonio. Glad to have y'all back. I hope y'all having a great day. Hey, the Spurs finally play a game tonight. Yeah, the Paris games kick off. Spurs Pacers early game. So set your watches or calendars, whatever. I don't know if the kids still use calendars nowadays, but whatever you do, remind yourself it's an early tip. So I think it's early afternoon. So just a heads up on that. But we're going to be talking about that game later on this show. But also we're going to be highlighting the Spurs' lack of defense. It's bad, everybody. It's really, really bad. We're going to get into some numbers. We're going to look at how they've been doing the last 5 games, the last 10 games. We'll go back to even 20 games to see how defensively things have just, the wheels have fallen off, let's put it that way. And so we'll be doing all that and more. As always, subscribe to Locked On Spurs wherever you get your favorite podcast, iTunes, Spotify, KENS 5 Plus app. KENS 5 Plus app. And what is the other place? Oh, yeah, the newsletter. That's right. Subscribe to the Locked On Spurs newsletter right now. It's in the description below on the YouTube side of things. Click on that link. You'll be good to go. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off for your first purchase. Now, heads up, everybody. Overall, cumulative, all the games played, the Spurs are still doing okay defensively. Just look at every single game they played up to this point. After their 19-22 record, they still rank about the middle of the pack in the NBA at a defensive rating of 114.2, which is okay. But there's a major pattern happening right now. The defense is slipping and slipping mightily. We're, like I said, getting into some numbers. We're going to look at maybe the teams that they're facing. Is that an issue? Is it really just missing Sochan? Should they play, Castle more, put him back in the starting lineup? There's so much going on defensively. It's a lot to carry. So let's bring in our guest, Raul Dominguez of the AP Sports based in San Antonio. Raul, welcome back to Locked On Sports, and thanks for coming out to the Cowacon this past weekend, man. I appreciated it.
Yeah, it was fun. That was I always enjoy going to those anime cons. So
yeah. You were soaking it all in. You went to the vendors. I stuck around for a panel, and I didn't blame you if you left, though. I really didn't. But yeah, that was a little out of my age range when I was hosting that panel. But nevertheless, I'm glad you came out. And make sure everybody you follow Raul on X at Dominguez5. Do that right now. Again, he's an AP sports writer based in San Antonio. And Raul, finally, the Spurs play a game. It feels like it's been forever.
Yeah, like you're saying, it's an early start. It's 1:00. So sure people are going to be tuning in, during work or sneaking off during the lunch hours to watch some of the games. So
yeah, I know. Yeah, I had I'm gonna have to have my like an extra window open on my laptop computer just to check it out. But yeah, the Paris games kick off today. So hopefully the Spurs get a W. They're riding a 3-game losing skid. One thing they can do right now to stop this losing skid is actually play defense. Raul, it's been bad. It has been horrible. It's not a little slippage. It's not a 1-game thing that just messed up here. No, this is now a pattern. We're going to look at the last 5 games. We're going to look at the last 10 games and the last 20 games. We're going to go that far back to show y'all or at least let y'all listen to exactly how bad it's been. But before we get into some numbers, Raul, what do the eye tests tell you? Why do you think this team is just slipping so bad defensively?
I don't know. It's a good question. I'm not sure if I have the answer for it. I mean, because you obviously have, to me, the best defensive player in the league right now, and probably the best defensive player in at least maybe 5-10 years in Wembanyama. So your defense should be pretty good with having Victor back there to clean stuff up. But I don't know if it's maybe the rotations where some people are starting. Someone gets injured, they mix it up a little bit, or I know it seems like Mitch has been doing different things with the people that are on the court, or when he's playing with some of the second unit. He's been playing with some of the second unit players a lot. I don't know if maybe that's it. But the one thing that I've noticed, though, is a lot of times they do play pretty good defense, They make a stop, but then they can't get the offensive rebound. And the team, teams get here lately, it seems like especially in the critical stretches of a game, teams are getting 2, 3, 4 shots, on one possession. So, I think rebounding would definitely help. And I think part of that is crashing the boards a little bit more and, just kind of helping out defensively. Seems like right now it's a lot of one-on-one defense, kind of waiting for Wemby to kind of clean things up. But, it's got to be the other way around as well. They got to help Wemby out and they got to help each other out. The team defense just doesn't seem to be there and, sort of being connected with each other.
Yeah, it really is just from the eye test, just a lack of commitment to the defensive end. What is just baffling, though, Raul, is that first period, especially during the losing skid. So we're just looking at the last 3 games. They're super competitive. They are very, very competitive. Again, we're just going to peek into the first period. This season, the Spurs, let me rephrase that. The last 5 games, in first periods only, their defensive rating is top 5. It's actually number 5, 108.2 in the NBA. So they're good defensively. Yeah. And then you just start seeing the wheels fall off. I mean, and it's not a gradual slippage; it's a dramatic drop off. They're remaining competitive. Defensive is actually staying strong in second period. So we look at the Spurs in the last 5 games in the second period. Actually, I take that back. Excuse me. I'm sorry. I got the wrong stat here, Raul. Let me just bring this to everybody's attention here. So the Spurs in the first period in the last 5 games go from a 108.2 defensive rating. Raul, in the second period over the last 5 games, it dropped to 25th in the NBA at 123.2. That is just scary bad. Like, that's scary good. This is scary bad. It's like, what happens? One of the more concerning things for me defensively is we saw, I think it was in the last Memphis game. It was one of the Memphis games where you see the Spurs sputtering defensively, and in comes Victor Wembanyama. But yet, even though that alien comes in and that defensive beast comes in, the Grizzlies went on about a 10-11 nothing run on that, even with Wemby on the court. That is just so concerning, Raul. Could we be seeing maybe the lack of Sochan over the last few games? His defensive impact, because I think with him on the court, the Spurs are about a 111 defensive rated team.
Yeah, I was going to say, Sochan's obviously missed. Sochan is such a underappreciated defensive player. I know some fans, for whatever reason, they don't like Sochan or maybe say like, oh, he shouldn't be starting, but they are really undervaluing Sochan's defensive ability. I mean, Jeremy can guard 1 through 5, he can guard a point guard and he can guard a center, tremendous defensive player. And he what I talked about earlier, as far as the boards, Jeremy loves crashing the boards and rolling to the basket offensively as well. So I think having him out has definitely hurt the Spurs defensively because of how he plays defense, but I also think his size. When Jeremy's not there, they're playing a lot of undersized lineups, and seems like a lot of these teams now are. You look at Memphis, you look at Miami. They put 2 big men in there to kind of counter Wemby, because Wemby can't be all over the court at one time. So they put a big man on Wemby, and then they put a big man, that's pretty athletic on, say, Castle or someone else just to take them away. And that helps them defensively, but it also helps them offensively, because the size, there's a big size advantage, so they have a good matchup, a good advantage size wise on the offensive end. Yeah, so I think that's a big thing. I don't know how you fix that. Like, I think we've talked about this, and I'd love to see maybe Zach on the court with Wemby some, maybe Bassie on the court with Wemby some, just to maybe counter that a little bit, because I think right now the Spurs are just a little undersized.
Yeah, and look, at this point, you're in a 3-game losing skid. The season looks, right now kind of just bad. And again, Raul, I would be okay if they were losing, if they were at least competitive. They're not even competitive. They've been losing by 20 or more points in the last 3 games. They're just getting curb stomped. Shades of last season. I feel like getting flashbacks here. But if we're going to shake up the defensive end, then yeah, I mean, you're lacking Sochan. We mentioned his numbers right now. And let's not forget about Steph Castle. He's on the court for the Spurs. Actually, he owns a defensive rating of 117.4. And we saw that shift. He's now kind of in and out of the starting lineup. I think he got the start recently, but even when he doesn't get the start, even the Spurs are throwing him into the fire fast. But do you think that could be another shakeup? Just put out one of your better perimeter defenders, Steph Castle, and see if that shakes up the defensive cobwebs.
Yeah, we had talked about that, man. I think eventually Steph's going to be in the starting lineup full time. Look at the future of the Spurs, and I think Spurs have a great nucleus in Steph, Jeremy, and Wemby. Defensively, also especially Steph and Wemby, great offensively as well. But I think those three are just premier defenders. And I think all three of them are eventually going to be all defense NBA. So I think it'd be great for the Spurs to have all three on the court. But we had talked about this on a previous Locked On. Where we think Steph should be starting, but who do you take out?
Yeah, that's the thing. And it's not just simply just the overall defense, which is bad. I mean, you pick a spot on the defensive side, 3-point defense issues. They struggled significantly, defending the 3 line, especially in recent games. They're allowed 3 shots, 3-pointers to fall. So you got that going on for them. And I think right now the biggest impact on the defensive is just player absence. Sochan, the size, defensive versatility, rebounding, all that's missed. But there is a pattern here. There is a pattern, not just in the defensive slippage by the numbers, which we'll go into in just a few minutes, but also the type of team that they're losing to. Interesting note. So on that note, when we get back, we're going to look at the losses that the Spurs have suffered, and there is a pattern there too. The type of team they're losing to. Right here on Locked On Spurs with Raul Dominguez. Follow him on X at Dominguez Thinko right now. He is the AP sports writer based out in San Antonio. But first, let's talk about Talkspace.
Hey, let's talk about Talkspace. Therapy is a game changer. It can help manage stress, improve sleep, and communicate more effectively. But finding the right therapist and fitting sessions into a busy schedule can be challenging. Well, there's Talkspace. That's where Talkspace comes in. Talkspace, the leading virtual therapy provider, makes getting the help you need easy, accessible, and affordable. With Talkspace, signing up is simple. You can match with a licensed therapist who fits your needs, usually within 48 hours, and it's convenient. You can have sessions from the comfort of your own home, even message your therapist between appointments. Plus, Talkspace is covered by many insurance plans, and for most insured members, there's a $0 copay. It's never been easier to prioritize mental health. As a listener of this podcast, you'll get $80 off your first month with Talkspace when you go to Talkspace.com/LockedOnNBA, enter promo code SPACE80. To match a licensed therapist today, go to Talkspace.com/LockedOnNBA and enter promo code SPACE80 and get $80 off your first month and show your support for the show. That's Talkspace/LockedOnNBA, promo code SPACE80.
What's up, guys? This is KG Tang, voice of Sanami Shinizugawa and Demon Slayer, and you're watching Locked On Spurs with Jeff Garcia.
We're back right here on Locked On Spurs with Raul Dominguez of the AP Sports out in San Antonio. Follow him on X at Dominguez Cinco right now. Unfortunately, he did not cosplay at the Comic-Con. I was kind of crossing fingers that he was going to show up as the Hulk. Because, Raul, you're a pretty big dude, man. I was like, he's going to come as the Hulk, man. Or at least the Thing. Like, I think you could fit as the Thing.
I didn't see very many superhero ones. It was all pretty much anime. So there was a few that I had no idea who they were, but they looked well.
You and me both. I love anime. It's one of my favorite genres of animation. But for those of y'all who never heard of the con that Raul went to, I hosted. It's called Kawakan. It's in San Antonio, and they focus on anime. And this is like deep dive stuff. I mean, it's really, you gotta have knowledge to come to. Bro, there was one time where I was hosting a panel. I had to ask one of the voice actors. I go, how do you pronounce his name again? Unfortunately, she told me. She's like, you just say it like that. It goes, just say licorice, but drop the H. I said, licorice? Yeah. She's like, yeah, okay, you're good. But anyway, the follow Raul on X at Dominguez we're talking about the Spurs defensive woes. They're bad. They're really, really bad, everybody. Before we get into some more numbers here, I wanted to bring up a pattern, Raul, of the type of team the Spurs are losing to and why they're getting clobbered. If you look at the 2 losses versus Memphis Grizzlies and then the 1 loss versus the Bulls, those 2 teams have something in common. Right now, they're 1 and 2 in pace in the NBA. The Grizzlies lead the NBA. They have the fastest pace in the league at 104.8. The Bulls, with the Spurs lost to recently, had the second best pace numbers, 103.5. Raul, there's something there to be said. The Spurs cannot play at that pace. If you want to look at the Spurs pace right now, it actually ranks, I got it here for you, 19th in the NBA. It's such a dramatic drop, 98.7. So that tells me if teams get running on this Spurs team, they're likely going to lose because the Spurs are not showing a commitment to transition defense or just getting back on defense. Raul, I think that's very telling in the last 3 games in this losing skid.
Yes, and the one thing I noticed with Memphis and with Chicago, with Ja and then with Kobe White was, they're not afraid to attack Wemby. They don't care if they get blocked or if they get, denied. Like they're continuing to do that. When you're talking about the pace, Kobe had a dunk on Wemby, which really wasn't a dunk on Wemby because he came over late. To me, it was, I know a lot of people, it was a great dunk, but to me, it wasn't like people were saying like, oh, he dunked over Wemby, and Wemby got over late. But the thing is, he kept attacking him, and when you're talking about playing with pace, Victor does a great job getting back defensively, but. Obviously Wemby can't be on all places of the court, so he's coming over to try and help. And if you play with pace, you're gonna get Wemby out of position a lot of times, and depending on the matchups, depending on the pace, you're gonna be able to get him, not where he's not quite he's not able to get over there quite on time.
Yeah.
So I think that's what Memphis and Chicago did. I think they sort of figured out, let's just keep attacking Wemby. Eventually, we're gonna get some shots, and eventually, we're gonna even if he blocks it or disrupts it, there's no one going to be on the backside to help for follow-ups, for rebounding. So, that Memphis especially was extremely smart now. Played Wemby.
Oh, yeah. So let's go ahead and look at some numbers in this losing skid. And again, we're focusing on some issues on the defensive end, and they're not helping themselves, Raul. In the 3-game losing skid, they have a turnover percentage, which ranks 20th in the NBA. It's bad at 14.3% turnover rating, percentage, excuse me. So they're coughing the ball up a lot in this 3-game skid here. Rebounding. They're 24th in the league right now at a rebounding percentage of 47.4. So they're not crashing the boards, excuse me. Offensive rebounding, they're not generating second chance opportunities, 21st in the league, 22.1. So you got a bad mix right now of things that are not helping themselves play better defense. Poor rebounding, turnover percentage, obviously the defensive rating. And by the way, Ray, for those who are curious, the defensive rating for the Spurs within this 3-game losing skid ahead of today's game versus the Pacers, dead last. This is how bad it is. 131.9 defensive rating in the 3-game losing streak. They are just not showing up, Raul. And that's what's baffling to me is you got Victor. You would think that would at least keep them afloat, but it's not even doing that, Raul.
Yeah, like I said, teams are smart enough. They realize that, they attack Wemby, that there's not much, secondary help. So again, if he blocks a shot, if he disrupts a shot or, attacks, then there's no one on the, the back end to clean anything up. So I think Spurs definitely need to hit the boards more. And even offensively, like I've noticed a lot of times most of the players are outside the 3-point line. Right. Someone puts up a shot and there's nobody there to rebound. Stay on those long rebounds, and then so that's also hurting them as far as the team gets a long rebound and they're grab the rebound and they're off headed the other direction for a fast break.
Yeah, Yeah, and again, for me, it's just attention and / commitment to the defensive end. And again, we're trying to satisfy the stat nerds here. If you look at the Spurs 3-game losing skid and you go half to half, so first half, second half comparisons are here. Believe it or not, Raul, in the first half, despite losing 3 straight, their defensive rating is actually 6th in the NBA at 105.3. That's very interesting. Their offensive rating is about the middle of the pack in the first half within the 3-game losses, the 3 straight losses at 112 offensive rating. But Raul, brace yourself. In the second half, it just plummets offensively and defensively. We talked about the defensive rating drops a dead last in the NBA. In second halves only, 158.7 in the last 3 games from the Spurs. Offensive rating falls to 22nd in the NBA, 109.9. This is a night and day team in the last 3 games, which leads me to think that Mitch is going to have to do a lot more adjustments in that second half. And that's what it comes down to. You brought up Collins. What do you got to lose, Mitch? Throw him out there. He's a banger. He's a big boy. He'll throw his body around. He'll cause some havoc in there. Bassey as well. What do you got to lose? Throw Castle out there. Let him start for the second half. I think those little adjustments could go far for the Spurs role.
Yeah, those in the Memphis game, Memphis scored 78 points in both of those games in the second half. And I think they had outscored them. I think it was like 156 to it was around 100 in the second half. I mean, they just clobbered them in the second half. I think Memphis did a better job adjusting coming out of halftime. But again, I also think it was, the fact that the Memphis kept attacking Wemby, and, it seemed like Wemby was getting a little fatigued and, if he's expelling that much energy on the defensive end, it's a little tougher for him offensively as well. So, like I said, the big thing is like Pop always talks about team defense, that they've got to be connected. And right now, I think they're just not connected right now. I think it's kind of kind of some one-on-one defense or closing out late and then hoping that Wemby kind of cleans it up. But they need to give Wemby some help as well.
Yeah, and there could be some, I guess, taking for granted that Wemby's there sometimes. Like, if I don't really close out on this shooter here, or if I close down on him, it's fine. Wemby's there. I think maybe they rely on him defensively a little bit too much.
Yeah, maybe too much.
There's that. And, but for me, when I look at the numbers and look at the stats, the discrepancy between the first half, second half, for me, I think it just comes down to Mitch and the coaching staff right now. They got to make the adjustments. And so far, at least in the 3-game slide, they're not doing that. Look, Keldon Johnson, good player, good guy, but not a defensive stalwart. Maybe that shift for him could be something on the table. We talked about maybe playing Castle more. Obviously, Sochan's out. He's one of your better defenders on the roster. Hopefully he comes back. We'll see that tighten up. But for me, if I had to put a blame right now, I'm looking at Mitch and the coaching staff. Raul, your thoughts?
It's a little tough for me to say that because I'm not obviously not in the meetings and stuff. You're not. Well, you got kicked out because I was talking to you. But as far as just like, I'm not sure exactly, what's being said. I know Mitch talks to Pop as well a lot. So, so I'm not sure, but like I said, the Spurs are going small a lot, and it's kind of, that was the trend in the NBA. But it seems like it's almost starting to go back the other way because you look at Miami. Miami played Bam and Ware. You look at Memphis. Memphis had Huff and Aldama and Edie. A lot of times on the court at the same time. At least 2 of them on the court at the same time, and Jaren Jackson as well, who's also 6'10", I believe. So it almost seems like it's almost starting to go back the other way, where teams are drafting big men that are athletic. So they're able to put 2 big men on the court at the same time.
Right.
Maybe it's time for the Spurs to go back to something similar.
Yeah. And something familiar, too, would be that starting unit that started the season. That unit was strong. Maybe it was just coming out of the gate strong, and who knows if it would lasted, but that starting unit to start the season, which was Castle, Champagny, Paul, Barnes, and Wemby, that was one of the better defensive and offense, just better net rating team in the league, and the Spurs have gotten away with that. Who knows if that is probably the ultimate adjustment for Mitch Johnson and the coaching staff. Just go back to what was not broken and see if that shakes things out. Hey, but we're done kind of throwing these numbers at you and our thoughts about the Spurs' major defensive slide. Bro, I never thought I'd be on a Locked On Spurs podcast with you or anybody to be talking about major defensive slides when Wemby's there. Seriously. Never thought I'd do that. Yeah, it's ugly, everybody. And hopefully the Spurs will get a W versus Indiana today. He is Raul Dominguez, the AP Sports. Follow him on X at Dominguez5. We'll be back. We're going to be looking at today's game, Spurs-Pacers, to kick off the Paris games. Hopefully the Spurs can snap that losing skid out in Wemby's home country. But first, let's talk about game time.
I love going to live events, whether it's sports, music, theater, or comedy. One of my favorite memories was attending a concert last year. The energy and excitement, unforgettable. Now, Game Time has made it easier to get tickets to your favorite events with their new feature, Game Time Picks. This feature filters out the fluff, so it just shows you the incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. But personally, I was looking for some tickets to an upcoming game. It was a Spurs game, and I started using the Game Time app. Well, with Game Time Picks, I found amazing deals that I could even see the views from my seat before buying. They had a super deal. That was particularly impressive. They offered up great seats at unbeatable prices. Plus, the app's all-in pricing shows the total cost up front, no surprise fees at checkout. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Create an account. Redeem code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It is game time.
Hey, this is Chris Sabat, and you're listening to Locked On Spurs with Jeff Garcia.
We're back right here on Locked On Spurs with Raul Dominguez of the AP Sports. Follow him on X at Dominguez5, and we're going to preview today's game. Yes, today's game, not tonight, today in the afternoon. Spurs Pacers out in France. Now, right off the bat, Raul, I'm really nervous about this game. Why? Because what did we talk about in the first two segments? Pace. We talked about the Grizzlies and the Bulls being 1 and 2 in pace. Brace yourself, everybody. The Pacers are top 10. They're number 8 in the NBA at pace at 99.4. And just a reminder, the Spurs come in at number 19 at 98.7. So for me, it starts off with the Spurs controlling that pace, Raul, and trying to match that pace.
Yeah, I mean, and lots going to also depend on Jeremy. I think Jeremy's going to be back for these games. I think the Spurs held him out maybe an extra game or two just to be certain that he would be okay for the Paris games. So I think he'll be back. So interesting. It will be interesting to see if he helps out defensively. But Indiana's got such a good squad. Pascal Siakam always does well against the Spurs. And he's one of those players, that you're talking about pace, a guy that can just get up and down the court, and then Miles Turner. I mean, it's going to be a very tough defensive assignment for the Spurs.
Yeah. The Pacers come in ranked 10th in the NBA in points at 115.2, 8th in assists at 28.3, 8th in field goal makes at 43.1, 4th in a field goal percentage at I gotta hear 49%. And this is where another key to the Spurs win is keying on those 3-point shooters for Indiana. Why? Because the Pacers rank 7th in the NBA in 3-point percentage at 37.3. Or could it come down for the Spurs just simply playing defense that we haven't seen them do over the last 3 games?
Well, I kind of have a feeling it's going to be a offensive shootout. I think I don't know. Yeah. I just don't. Especially with the defensive woes they've had, I just don't think they're going to be able to slow Indiana down. And I know Wemby's going to want to have a spectacular game, offensively and defensively. So, like I mentioned earlier, his teammates have to help him more. I'm told that because these games obviously mean a lot to Wemby. So, gotta help him. Gotta help him.
Yeah, gotta help him. Now, there's some good news for the Spurs. Yes, we know that the Pacers have a faster pace in San Antonio. That's been kind of the Spurs' bugaboo over the last few games. But the good news is, it's not like the Pacers are a defensive beast. In opponent points per game, they allow 114.6, good for 21st in the NBA. So it's not like they're locking down teams. So maybe the Spurs can expose that on their end. Yeah, you mentioned Wemby. Obviously, all eyes are going to be on him. He's going to want to have monster games because there's 2 games in Paris. But, again, all hands on deck. We talked about the defensive side of things. That's where it begins right now. I think if they can get a good rhythm today versus Indiana, I hope they could get back on that defensive front that they were on. Because remember, Raul, start the season, they were holding on to leads. They were pushing teams back from their runs. They were capable of maintaining leads. They were even at one point undefeated at home if they were heading into the fourth period on top of the scoreboard. Man, it feels like how quick they declined on the defensive end. You think that just simply could be just the dog days of the NBA right now?
Yeah, I was thinking, maybe that, that they're getting maybe a little fatigued. Some of these guys are playing bigger minutes than what they're used to. Devin, had injury problems, unfortunately. So, I know he missed big chunks of the last few seasons. But I also think it's just, teams adjusting to Castle, to Wemby, having a better idea on how to attack them. And they're making good adjustments. So, but I know Spurs fans obviously, upset and a little down on the team, but this is still the same squad that was playing, excellent basketball that have fans, dreaming of playoff contention and doing well. So I think it's just a matter of just adjustments and just coming back together. It just doesn't seem, and I don't mean this in a bad way, but it just doesn't seem like the chemistry is there. I'm not talking about as far as like anything bad, but it just seems like right now they're still trying to figure out their roles. They're still trying to figure out exactly what to do on the court. Like Memphis has an identity under Jenkins. Even last year when they had all those injuries, Coach Jenkins had, they were still playing the way that Coach Jenkins wanted them to play. And
right.
With this Spurs squad, it seems like they're still kind of trying to figure out, okay, well, do I need to score more? What's my role? And I think it has to do with some of the different rotations, different things being asked of them. It just, I don't know. It's just like they need to forge their identity or, create an identity for themselves. The Spurs do.
Yeah. Well, hopefully the Spurs identity today will be winning because that's what they got to do. Because right now at 19-22, 3-game losing skid. Yeah, it's great. They're in Paris. So, see the videos the Spurs are releasing a roll. They're all smiley, laughy. But ultimately, like the team said before they left to Paris, it's a business trip. They got to handle business on the court. He is Raul Dominguez of the AP Sports. Follow him on X at Dominguez Cinco. Raul, what you working on right now?
Well, just kind of getting ready for this Spurs game. And the Associated Press has Tim Reynolds over there, great writer based out of Miami. So he's getting the chance to cover the Spurs and just kind of waiting on that. And Tim had a great story about, kind of the Spurs and what they're going through. And as far as, that they're expecting Pop to come back. They don't know when, but, Tim wrote, they're expecting Pop back. And apparently he's doing really well in rehab. So, I think there's a good chance we're going to see Pop this season.
Yeah, if I had to take a guess, I think if he does come back after the rodeo road trip, I'm thinking, because I don't know if they want to put medically traveling, all that, that way. I mean, if I would have to, put a bet on that, I say maybe after the rodeo road trip. But what I'm going to find interesting, I think it'll be a good chat in the next Locked On Spurs soon, is what about Mitch? Let's just say Pop comes back today, against the Pacers. Hey, big surprise, everybody. Mitch goes back to the bench. Well, the assistant coaching bench. What does that mean for him is, do the Spurs kind of run the risk of losing him to another team that wants to poach him when the season's over? I don't know. But he looks like he's here for the long haul. Well, hopefully he will be. Even after Pop officially decides to call it quit, if he does. But Pop is too stubborn to go out the way he went out through this. Yeah, he's gonna go out on the sidelines.
Yeah, you never know. Pop may want to come back just to kind of close the season out and then move on or something. Who knows? But yeah, I think Pop definitely does not want to end his career on the note that he has right now, the way he has it.
Absolutely. Again, follow Raul on X at Dominguez Cinco so you can get all the latest Spurs coverage from him. And us as well here at Locked On Spurs by subscribing to Locked On Spurs, where we get your favorite podcasts, iTunes, Spotify, Kindle Plus app, YouTube, and subscribe to the Locked On Spurs newsletter. It's in the description below. If you're on the YouTube side of things, click on that. Can't not make it easier for you. It says LO Spurs newsletter. Click on that. It's completely free, so sign up today. Again, Raul, I want to thank you for showing some support over the weekend, going to the con. Heads up, though, Raul, my next hosting gig is the Terror Con in San Antonio.
Juliette Lewis.
She's coming to San Antonio. And, I don't get nervous with celebrities. I've only gotten nervous around a couple. I guess I say three. I link Daniel Lewis with Ralph Macchio and what's the other guy actor's name? The one that plays Johnny.
Yeah.
Drawing a blank right now. But I got nervous with those two guys when I saw them enter the room. And I was like, I grew up watching those guys on TV. And then the other one was, who did I get nervous about?
Yeah, William Zappa. I'm sorry, William.
Yeah, William Zappa. Thank you so much. And then there's one other actress I got a little nervous about. She was in that movie on Netflix, Rebel Moon. Let me get that name for you. And I think it's obvious to everybody why I got nervous. So I don't have to go any further. Y'all see her pictures. And Sofia Boutella. There you go. So that was it, though. But, again, Raul had fun. We all had fun at the con. Raul, I thank you for showing some support. Follow Raul on X at Dominguez Cinco. We'll be back tomorrow and so much more. So for Raul Dominguez, I am Jeff Garcia. We're going to put a lock on this episode of Locked On Spurs.